Hey, my name's Zano, and you're listening to Anti Moonboy News. Yeah, we got a good one today for you guys. We're going to be talking about the 18-block reorg. Cubic stuff is not over, and unfortunately we had 118 transactions invalidated. So we'll talk about what that means. We also have a ton of different news bits to get to. We're going to talk about the Kraken delisting and the government trying to add new privacy or anti-privacy legislation to attack Monero. But first, we got Superchats. If you go to xmrchat.com/Zenu, you can participate. And we got two this week. The first one's from Leo, who gives 0.05 XMR. Thanks, Leo. And he says, "Hi, Zenu. Came across an interesting read on Zano. How does it or does it not support smart contracts? And what are your thoughts on Edge Wallet, as they are promoting Zano quite a bit, but nothing on Monero?" Well, thanks, Leo. And it's kind of funny. So the link that he provides is to libresolutions.network. They have an article about Zano. And I'm not sure if you're aware, Leo, but I actually was interviewed by this guy. Maybe you are aware. But yeah, Gabriel, who runs that website, Libre Solutions, he's got great content. And yeah, he wrote an article about Zano. And yeah, so I guess the definition of like a smart contract is it's much more broad than what Zano offers. You know, I guess Zano offers specific kind of things that you can do. So you can have like pegged cryptocurrencies. That's one of their main things that they're offering. That FUSD option that they're hyping up, but it's not like Ethereum. With Ethereum, you have like programmable money. You have like a programming language that you can really customize things and have full-on decentralized finance. That's not the case with Zano. It's much more limited in what you can do with it. And this is really, one of the criticisms that I have for it. Like, if you are making a platform with like money that is programmable, or especially if it's a competitor against something like Ethereum, you probably want to have as much of customizability as something that you have like with Ethereum. And that's just not the case. I have heard a counter argument where by having it more limited in scope, it prevents as much of an attack vector, or limits what can be attacked. And this is true, but by the same token, pun not intended, it actually makes it so I just don't really see the point of something like Zano. And this is one of my bigger criticisms of, projects that aren't Monero. Like if you're trying to convince somebody who wants privacy to not use Monero, what's going to be the selling point? Like if you're looking at someone on the darknet, they're using Monero. What can you tell them that'll convince them, hey, use Zano instead? Or use Zcash instead? Or use, Firo or whatever. And the difference in like the privacy that you'll get is like negligible. If anything, it's worse because more people are using Monero and it's just easier to follow along. So, yeah, I mean, with Zano, perhaps they have this option of like a stable coin, and this is something that they're promoting. But yeah, I'm skeptical of that being adopted. Adoption really comes from more of a culture. And Zano just doesn't have that. It's a very Moonboy culture. And the cypherpunks, quote unquote, in Zano are really just people who watch like Aaron Day and like other like libertarian skeptic types. They're not really like, actual cypherpunks. Now, regarding your second question, thoughts on Edge Wallet, as they're promoting Zano quite a bit, but nothing on Monero. I don't really know much about Edge Wallet. I think it's a closed source project. It's proprietary. So, I mean, based on that alone, like I just rank it below, other wallets that are out there. I've heard people like it though. I think it's a very like beginner friendly wallet, right? Kind of in a similar vein as like a Cake wallet where you can, swap between different cryptocurrencies. So that's very user friendly. So I can see why people would like it. And apparently they're promoting Zano. Yeah, I have no idea. It's quite plausible that, the Zano team gave them a bag and said, hey, help promote our project. Because I think they've been doing that a lot. I think they've been definitely advertising somewhat successfully too. I mean, Zano is being talked about a lot by, the libertarian crowd. And they probably, did the same with Edge Wallet. So I mean, I have no idea, or at least I didn't even know that Zano was on Edge Wallet, but it's not really that surprising to me. But anyway, okay, Leo, well, thank you, as always, for your donation. All right, next up, we have a donation from Anon, who gives 0.028 XMR. Thanks, man. And he says, yeah, lower the volume for the outro. Any takes on differences between Protestant and Orthodox churches in relation to symbolism and idolization? Also, could you arrange an interview with Matteo and Seth? Well, thanks, Anon. Yeah, regarding the volume, I did kind of understand your message last week. Tried to fix the balance on that. It's a little tricky because I do want to have music. I think I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that, so we will keep doing that. It is tricky though because we go from music to me talking to music. There's a balancing thing, so you got to be kind of careful with that. So I'll try not to blow your eardrums out with heavy bass in the future. Now moving on, you ask, any takes on differences between Protestant and Orthodox churches in relation to symbolism and idolization? Yeah, I mean, I'll answer this because you asked. I'm not like an apologetic here. All right. This is not my wheelhouse. I'm Catholic, for full disclosure. My takes on it. Yeah, I prefer a tradition when it comes to religion. Tradition's really important for me. So just because it has like, I like the idea that I am going to a church that has had traditions that go back many generations. Because I feel more connected with, my people, my family, who all came before me. So I really like that. With Protestantism, I mean, there's so many different like churches with that. And some of them are pretty wacky. I'm not going to lie to you. Some of them are pretty out there. And it's hard to kind of generalize that. But if I'm talking about like the Catholic Mass or, how, Eastern Orthodox is like, it's very similar to how it was like 100 years ago, right? I mean, there are differences, but, it's very much a tradition that has been carried over generations. And so I kind of prefer that. Regarding Orthodox, love the icons too. Pretty cool stuff. Really cool aesthetics. And idolization, like, yeah, this is like with Protestants complaining about Mary and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's veneration. It's not worship. I don't know. So yeah, I think that's something. I don't know too much about Orthodox. I'm pretty sure they are in agreement with the Catholics on this though, right? Where we have saints, and yeah, I think having saints is cool. I don't know. So I don't really have much more to say on this, and I don't want like 5 religious questions next week. All right, I know you're. I'm talking to you. You right there. You're getting all worked up right now. No, don't send me any religious questions. You can if you want to, but I'm really not an expert on this. And the last thing, oh yeah, you mentioned, could you arrange an interview with Matteo or Seth? Yeah, I mean, I've talked with both of them in the past. Matteo, I don't know if is he making content still? He's kind of like traveling, I think. I think he's kind of just like, yeah, he's like traveling, I believe, because he went to MoneroCon. That's actually the last time I talked with him. He was kind of DMing me. I was talking with him a little bit. But yeah, I think he's kind of just doing his own thing. Same with Seth. I did message Seth when I first launched my channel, and we never talked for like an interview. But I mean, I would love to be on either of their programs. So I don't really like to, bother, different, content creators. So maybe you can message them, say interview Zeno. Yeah, but I'm more than happy to go in either of their channels. Anyways, guys, that is that. So if you would like to send a super chat, you can go to xmrchat.com/Zenu. I'll be happy to answer your question. And let's now move on to some channel updates. There are none, pretty much. I've been super busy during the week. I'm not even sure if I'm going to have a video out this week as well. I'm actually in the process of moving, so there's stuff going on with that. So I'm kind of juggling a bunch of different things right now. So I'm sorry. I do want to get that RioSwap video recorded, but I literally haven't had the time. It was also kind of a crazy news week, so when I was on the internet this week, I was looking up the stuff regarding Charlie Kirk and that whole thing, which we will be talking about a little later, and how it relates to privacy. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say there other than kind of just trucking along. I think I'm only like 30 subs away from hitting 1,000 on YouTube. So I think I should be hitting that within a year of making the channel. So I'm pretty happy about that. And yeah, that's pretty much that. All right, so to start the news off, we are going to be talking pubic. They get so fucking butthurt about that. Oh man, I've been so with Cubic, I've been censoring their name on Twitter. Just not to feed into it. So I usually put asterisks up, and every single time I'll get some pubic, cult members, trying to mock me for doing that. It's kind of just like, I don't respect you guys. This is a scam. And unfortunately, they're turning Moonboyism and this mining operation that they have into an attack. Because miners are looking at this and just saying, hey, we get to mine Cubic, dump it for profit. We win if we do that. You look at the price of Cubic over the past week, past couple weeks actually, it's been dumping. And it's mostly because they don't have anything. Their AI that they released was a complete scam. It doesn't even work. And so, of course, they're saying that, well, the AI is learning. It was meant to be this way. It was meant to suck, guys. This is on purpose. It's by design. It's retarded because we made it that way. So anyways, this is basically a thorn in our side right now. And really, I've been busy lately as well. I haven't even been renting hash rate just because I haven't even been on my computer really. But I'm not alone in this where we've kind of been not really paying as much attention. And so what do they do? In the wee hours this morning, I think it was like 2 a.m. Eastern time, they rented a bunch of hash rate. and they successfully did an 18-block reorg, which invalidated 118 transactions. It's the largest reorg in Monero's history. So I'm going to read from my tweet thread. Monero was hit by an 18-block reorg, which invalidated 118 transactions. Unsurprisingly, Cubic is looking for a way to stay relevant and to stop the bleeding of their dumping price. Monero developer Sec1 said that Cubic blocks in the last 1,440 heights were 333, which is 23.12% orphaned, or 140 out of 473 were orphaned, which makes their total orphan rate 43.34%, with an efficiency of 86.19%. The efficiency of 86.19% means they lose XMR because of selfish mining, even after all their reorgs. So this is just an expensive PR stunt for them. My next tweet reads, the last couple of weeks have shown a waning interest around this attack, but invalidated transactions will jolt the community again. DNS checkpointing, a centralized fix which checkpoints blocks, is being tested vigorously. And this is a quote from XMR. All of those 117 spends will be eventually respent either a week or immediately if mined on a node that flushed the invalid transactions. End quote. And Monero, Ocean, and Support XMR have been contacted to flush their transaction pool. So yeah, there is some discrepancy. I had 118 transactions. XMR says 117. We'll say around 115, 120. But that's not good. And some of those were real transactions that people have been sending and didn't make it to their location. So they're kind of just sitting around, which sucks. So basically with these transactions that were spent, they're now stranded in the mempool. You can see it for yourself if you go to xmrchain.net. And those coins will be spendable again from the original owner after 1 week. Or until they can connect their wallet to a Monero daemon that had its mempool flushed to remove the now invalid transaction. So it is possible that one of these transactions could be double spent. So if somebody had purchased something and it got turned back and reorged and the transaction got stuck, they could then receive that Monero back. It's unclear if that actually happened. Pretty much every exchange has increased their confirm block time just because of this ongoing issue. But yeah, it's not good. And furthermore, Cubic, if they want to, they could do a double spend attack. They're not going to because they are a doxed public entity, but they have the capability. Frustrating, but that's what we're looking at right now. This is the biggest reorg in Monero's history. Just yet another step in the wrong direction. The good news, if there is any good news, is the reaction from the general market. Monero's pumping today. I don't get it either. Yeah, looking at the price right now, we're up 13% in USD and 7% in the Bitcoin ratio. This has actually probably been the biggest pump that Monero has had in the past 3 months. Why is this happening? I have no idea. There are some articles out there about this reorg. It was kind of funny too because these news articles that did come out that have been made have cited my tweet because I was one of the first people to tweet about this. But yeah, even though, if you're on social media, you're probably hearing about this. No one really cares, I guess. To be honest with you guys, this, if this were an actual non-clown market, right? If cryptocurrency was taken seriously, this would probably be a selling event, right? This is actually a really serious attack where we now have transactions that are invalidated. And yet Monero's pumping. How am I supposed to give commentary on this? Like, I have no idea. But this is what's literally happening right now. It kind of just goes to show you that the fundamentals really don't matter here. You know, you could just have somebody who is, you know, trying to get Monero really quickly. And they're buying it anyways because people actually use Monero. You know, in general, most people don't even know this attack even happened. Again, it happened in the wee hours. And yeah, we have some crypto journalism being written about it, but most people don't really care. Such is cryptocurrency in the year 2025. But this is quite serious. I don't want people to think that I'm downplaying this. This is important. And so anyways, one thing I want to make clear, though, is it's not like nothing is happening. Monero researchers are working their butts off right now. And every week they are debating different countermeasures, and they're actively testing DNS checkpointing. And I do have an update on that. It's basically done. It can be out within the next couple days. It's not a perfect fix, but it has been tested. And with DNS checkpointing, it would be a way to push back against this. But it's not a perfect solution. It's a centralized solution where basically we would be reverting people, or nodes would be essentially referencing a website, which would approve blocks. And so they wouldn't then reorg after a certain threshold. And so if Cubic were to do another, 18 block reorg, they would ignore it and they would go by whatever this centralized website is saying. So obviously this would be good for us because this would prevent that. This would mitigate against this type of attack. But it is centralized. Another problem, though, is it would create a chain split. And this is kind of dangerous territory. Maybe Cubic would continue mining on their chain. And I'm not really sure exactly how that would work out. I know it's being tested. But if you do have a chain split, that could get kind of funky. So there's some really concerning things here, but this is being debated a lot. And if you go to the Monero Research Lab meeting that happened last Wednesday, this was definitely debated. Luke Parker, he is not a fan of DNS checkpointing. But like even the people who are supportive of this are making it very clear this is a short-term kind of band-aid. It's not the ideal situation. But we're making the best of what we do have. And it's probably going to happen within the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. Like I said, it has been tested quite a bit over the past couple of weeks already. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, this event is kind of lighting a fire under people. There's now more motivation than ever to get something out. So we'll see what happens. If it does end up working, though, I mean, there's really not much else I think that can happen here, right? This wouldn't protect, I don't believe, against, this wouldn't protect against Cubic having over 50% of the hash rate. So if they were able to achieve that, they could then do whatever they want. But Cubic doesn't have that anyways. It's very clear that they have 30 to 35% of the hash rate. And then they are renting hash rate in short bursts. And this rented hash rate that they are getting for like a 1 to 3 hour period is helping them get these massive reorgs. It's very costly to them, and they're trying to do this to get PR. But as we've been seeing, the price of Cubic has been dumping. It's getting harder and harder for them to prop their price up in lieu of this AI scam that's now everybody's aware of. Their supporters are obviously drinking the Kool-Aid, saying, the AI is learning. We're learning with it. It's a scam. They just haven't figured it out yet. It's a vaporware scam. And because of this, the price has dumped pretty harshly over the past couple of weeks. And so they're doing everything they can to keep that up, and that's why they are starting to play even dirtier. They are doing these massive reorgs. However, here's some good news. We can actually easily attack Cubic right back. And, the thing is, if they are to get listed on a tier 1 centralized exchange, we can actually initiate some sort of social media campaign, targeting them and saying, hey, listen, you guys are supporting a hostile blockchain. So you guys, as a centralized exchange, you support, blockchains that attack other projects. And, we can just point to them, selfish mining and them, doing this type of attack that can actually allow double spends. So why would you allow a project that can do double spends to be listed on your centralized exchange? They would be supporting a hostile project, essentially. And I think that an organized, movement through social media can push back against it and then get them delisted. So that's something we have in our back pocket. If we do get to that point, we can screw them back over. Another thing too is, this the guy Come From Beyond, he tweets at me all the time. And so today I actually did respond to him. And I'm not going to read the tweets. It's stupid back and forth. And he's lying in every tweet that he makes. He's trolling. But he actually did say that he's spamming transactions. He actually used that phrase, which is hilarious because he's admitting that they are spamming transactions, which I did report like a week or two ago. And that's another thing we could point to. Not only are they selfish mining, but they're spamming transactions. So we can go to any centralized exchange that lists them and say, hey, you're supporting this project. Why are you supporting this project? They're openly hostile to the Monero project, which has been around forever. Why are they doing that? Whatever, man. Like I said, the price is actually pumping right now, somehow. And this is actually another way that Monero can be saved. If Monero does end up having a really good week, that means the mining network would become stronger. And it would make this type of attack harder to accomplish. So anyway, that is the Cubic stuff. We had a couple good weeks, but that was a negative episode. And hopefully it doesn't get any worse because, it's not good news, guys. So next up, we're going to be talking about more fuckery from the U.S. government targeting privacy in crypto. I mean, they do this all the time, right? This is from The Rage. Headline is, U.S. government to bring Patriot Act to digital assets. No, great. In July, the White House asked the Treasury to finalize the so-called Mixer Rule, a Biden-era regulation that would outlaw almost every mechanism for privacy on public blockchains for U.S. Americans. In this week's FinCEN oversight hearing, Director Gacki confirmed that the Treasury is currently working on finalizing the rule. We are seeing more and more illegal transactions being done in crypto, Representative Liccardo claimed in the hearing, citing a study which found that out of 111 examined fraud cases, 91% allegedly involve so-called decentralized finance or DeFi. The concern here, according to Liccardo, arises from the pseudonymity of transactions. How exactly are you going to do your job when transactions move through DeFi? While Gacki stated that FinCEN was working with blockchain analysis companies to de-anonymize these transactions, Liccardo countered that software like mixers would allow users to evade even sophisticated detection techniques. To alleviate concerns, Gacki pointed Liccardo to the Biden-era Mixer Rule, stating that FinCEN and the Treasury are exploring next steps on that. Since the Mixer Rule has already passed the notice of proposed rulemaking and public comment periods, its next step would be the finalization of the rule. The delicate thing is to not restrict legitimate transactions, such as by people trying to shield their activity from oppressive regimes, Gacki stated, adding that we have to make sure that we tailor any approach here to be really directed at illicit activity. Yeah, they don't want to shield activity from oppressive regimes, just not their oppressive regime. Anyway, the article continues. The Treasury's mixer rule is not so much a mixer rule, rather than a blanket ban on any software and even behavior that would grant users of public blockchains transactional privacy. As such, the rule would deem the following software behaviors a primary money laundering concern, meaning that such transactions would end up blocked by centralized intermediaries. It could put an end to the development of privacy software even for non-custodial wallets under the threat of criminal liabilities. These include pooling or aggregating cryptocurrency from multiple persons, wallets, addresses, or accounts, using programmatic or algorithmic code to coordinate, manage, or manipulate the structure of a transaction, splitting cryptocurrency for transmittal and transmitting the cryptocurrency through a series of independent transactions, creating and using single-use wallets, addresses, or accounts, and sending cryptocurrency through such wallets, addresses, or accounts through a series of independent transactions, exchanging between types of cryptocurrency or other digital assets, facilitating user-initiated delays in transactional activity. Notably, the mixers rule suggestions on cryptocurrency swaps, transaction delays, splitting, and the creation of single-use wallet addresses and accounts would even put users under suspicion with the authorities, potentially ending in criminal liability, similar to how transaction structuring, sometimes also known as smurfing, is deemed a federal crime in traditional finance, referring to the intentional breakup of transactions to fall below the $10,000 currency transaction reporting requirement. In traditional finance, smurfing carries a federal prison sentence of up to 5 years, even if the money transferred did not stem from illicit origins. So I haven't been shy about my opinions on government in general with privacy, but they're always attacking it. And this is the latest way they are trying to, which is more of the same. You have these vague generalizations. Everything is a gray area, and they are bullying exchanges, especially to delist Monero and other cryptocurrencies. And I shouldn't say Monero. It's digital cash is really what they're after. This isn't an attack on Monero. It's an attack on digital cash. They do not like the idea of peer-to-peer cash that is fungible. And that is why they are going after Bitcoin and anything privacy related with Bitcoin. They're going after Monero. They're going after everything, or at least everything that's used. If you have a future where Bitcoin privacy tools become popular again and begin being adopted on darknet markets again, you will see them targeted in regulations. I mean, it's not, Monero does not have, a monopoly on this. Okay, they do have the network effect, as we've made pretty clear with darknet market maximalism, but this can change. It's not like Monero, will always be number one. It's plausible that Lightning Network privacy can become more popular in the future, or some other cryptocurrency will come. So really, I encourage people to look at this more so from the perspective of these regulations are an attack on the concept of digital cash. And just look at how vague these concerns are. Okay, right? So pooling or aggregating cryptocurrency from multiple persons' wallets, addresses, or accounts. So I mean that mixing rule is probably targeting, mixers, right? Where you're taking funds and combining them. So that one's understandable. This is specifically going after mixers. The second concern, using programmatic or algorithmic code to coordinate, manage, or manipulate the structure of a transaction. That's really vague. That might not just be, an actual transaction like mixing, but that could be in the process of a transaction, right? Where you're doing something to manipulate what that transaction looked like. Maybe that affects Monero with Merkle trees. I don't know. It's very vague. The next concern, splitting cryptocurrency for transmittal and transmitting the cryptocurrency through a series of independent transactions. That sounds like a mixer again. So I think that would really only be for mixers. But that could also be for atomic swaps, right? where you're splitting a cryptocurrency and sending it to temporary wallets. Why not? This next concern, creating and using single-use wallets, addresses, or accounts, sending cryptocurrency through such wallets, addresses, or accounts through a series of independent transactions. Yet again, this impacts atomic swaps. I think this impacts coin swaps. This impacts mixers. You could argue a single-use address would be a stealth address for Monero. So again, very vague. It's unclear how this would even be applied and what it could apply to. The next concern, exchanging between types of cryptocurrency or other digital assets. That's coin swaps, 100%. And I have made this claim numerous times. They are going after coin swaps eventually. They do not like the fact that people could just swap in and out of cryptocurrencies. They want all that traced. And that is 100% targeting coin swaps. And the last one, facilitating user-initiated delays in transactional activity. Not really sure what that would target specifically, but again, these are very vague kind of things that they were looking at. The biggest and most important thing, though, is they are attacking privacy, and this is a blanket that they're throwing over cryptocurrency. So for Bitcoin, if your Bitcoin just appears in a KYC exchange and they cannot track the flow of it, they don't know where you got that Bitcoin from, you better believe it's going to be flagged. They're going to say, how did this come into this exchange? And for most people, this won't be an issue because most people don't use cryptocurrency. So they're basically just either holding Bitcoin on the exchange or they withdraw it to a personal account and then later on they send it back to a KYC exchange to cash out. And honestly, for that purpose, then this is fine. There's really no difference, right? You are abiding by the rules. But for people using peer-to-peer cash, you are being targeted. And it's just going to become harder and harder to be able to use peer-to-peer cash. And the irony here is by making it harder, you're actually benefiting Monero because it pushes people deeper and deeper in the weeds. And this is actually why I think Monero has grown so much, because Monero was targeted. It kind of had the opposite effect where by delisting Monero and targeting Monero, yes, it suppressed the price. But by doing so, it forced us to adapt. And we did adapt. We have a culture that really emphasizes don't use KYC. And we have a culture that emphasizes using these coin swap services. And that's why we've seen such growth there. And just look at the transaction data. Monero is being used. It's being used far more than Lightning Network. Who would have thought that? You know, if you go back a decade and you were to say, okay, what's going to be used more, this Project Monero or Lightning Network? No one would have said Monero, but this is what's happening. In fact, like you could ask a Bitcoiner right now, and they probably will say that Lightning Network is being used more, even though it's not. And we have the transaction data to prove that. And I'm not just saying like transaction data that, like it's transaction data that we can prove because merchants actually give that data. And we're going to actually cover that later in this episode. We have an update from ShopInBit where Monero mogged Bitcoin. And I'm not just talking Lightning Network, Bitcoin. It beat Bitcoin tremendously. So anyways, this mixer rule, it's the latest in a long line of the government doing one thing while they're saying they're doing the other. And that's the other thing I want to point out too. I'm just tired of this where you have these people thinking that the government's arguing in good faith. They're not. And I'm not going to read through tweets. I was going to go and read through certain tweets by certain people. Listen, there's smart people out there. And these smart people who I've talked about on the show, they are very good at covering these legal policy stuff. And they're very good because they got their ear to the ground and they're involved with these different lawyers and they're doing everything they can. I'm not saying these people are doing a disservice. They're very much doing a good thing. But it's quite frustrating because you're reading their opinions and they have this optimistic approach to everything where they're like, well, the Biden administration was worse, but the Trump administration, we're seeing some positive signs. And it's very clear to me that they're in complete denial. if you just remove the names, okay, there's no difference between the Biden administration and the Trump administration. You know, they're putting out these letters and then they're not backing it up. The only thing they have backed up is that if you did lobby for the Trump administration, then you had some positive things go your way. But if you didn't throw a bag over to Trump and his team, then they don't care about you. We didn't get a strategic reserve. That was a meme. And we're not getting this, rush of innovation for the blockchain. We're not getting a lax on regulations. It's been anything but. And from privacy, it's been atrocious. The perspective of privacy, it's been absolutely atrocious. We still haven't heard about the Tornado Cash retrial, but it's going to happen. I'd be very impressed if it doesn't happen. I'll be the first one to admit I was wrong. I don't see that going our way. They will retry. And I really hope that we can beat this. And if we can beat the appeal as well. So there's a lot more out there. It's very frustrating just constantly reading this like optimistic kind of viewpoint from these people who are otherwise very smart. It's quite analogous to, the people who argue in good faith for the American government as if voting for a certain political party will get your way when at the end of the day, both parties are exactly the same, right? Pro-war, pro-surveillance, pro-spending, pro-immigration, pro-big government. It's a racket. So that is the latest of the government attacking Monero privacy. Next up, we got Kraken. Oh yeah, so Kraken has been playing around with Monero over the past couple of years. And recently they had it so you could not withdraw Monero from Kraken in America. Now, over the past 2 years, Kraken has slowly been delisting Monero. Started off with a couple European countries, and then it was all of Europe. Then it was Canada. But America has held on. And there are questions as to, if this is going to be an outlier or if they will eventually delist Monero. So there's uncertainty here. Now, what they're saying is that because of this cubic situation, I think that was their excuse, that they wanted to prevent withdrawals or something. The other people are saying it's because they don't have Monero, which we've seen in the past. I'm not really sure. They have, though, relisted Monero, so it is available now. So a couple things on this. One, not surprising. I don't trust Kraken. Don't trust a centralized exchange. They will rug Monero when they want to. Okay, they don't care. They do not give a shit. Monero to them is just another cryptocurrency. And to be honest, I have a conspiracy myself where I think the reason they have Monero is because it is bottlenecked, where all Monero transactions that are KYC go through Kraken. And I think this benefits federal investigators. I don't have any proof of that, but it sounds like it's plausible. Nonetheless, right now it is in America, I think the only place you can get Monero in big amounts with KYC. And I'm really encouraging people not to be reliant on it and to find non-KYC alternatives, because Kraken, they can delist at any point. And if we look historically, it'll probably be at the point to maximize pain. We saw this with Binance. They rugged Monero to really maximize the amount of pain. And it worked. We saw Monero dump to, what was it, $100? It was pretty severe, even though it was temporary, but it did dump pretty hard. Now, another thing here too, I know there's a lot of criticisms about centralized exchanges, but one thing I do want to say in defense of people who use a centralized exchange or a KYC exchange is that just because people are using Monero, it doesn't mean that they are cypherpunk, privacy advocates. I would actually say the majority of people who buy and hold Monero are just regular people who see it as an investment opportunity. They view, Monero as taking the torch from Bitcoin of being peer-to-peer cash. They might be a darknet market maximalist, right? They might view that as a bullish indicator. I mean, I do. I view the fact that Monero has taken over the darknet as very, very bullish. So there is reasons to want to buy Monero, not because you use Monero, but because you view it as an investment opportunity. So, I did see some criticisms, of people saying, why even use Kraken? It's like, well, because some people don't really give a shit. And we here at Anti Moonboy do not endorse KYC exchanges, never will, because they are atrocious for privacy. But we have to understand that most people don't care about this. And that's why, in a recent video that I made about coin swaps, I said, listen, if you are using a KYC exchange and they don't have Monero, you can still get Monero. And while that might be horrifying to somebody, the cypherpunk who likes my channel, they might hear that and they're like, Zano, why would you tell people to do that? It's not that I want people to use a centralized exchange. It's more so that I just understand that people are going to use it regardless if I tell them not to or not. They're going to use a centralized exchange because it's convenient. So what I'm telling them is, okay, because you're using a centralized exchange, understand the risks, but here's how you can get Monero. And I think this is something that's important, and we have to just let happen. Don't fight against it. And, pushing people away and saying that they're LARPs or, that they're not as good as you. I'm actually fine with that. I'm fine with a little bullying. I kind of like it. A little bullying, I think, helps the culture. But I also think it's a little ridiculous because, you're barking up the wrong tree there. The average person buying Monero on a centralized exchange, they're using Windows or Mac. They have Facebook and Instagram, and a lot of people are like that, and that's fine. Everyone should be allowed to buy and hold Monero if they want to. And that's actually a positive too with Monero too, where when you talk about like Bitcoin privacy, and this is totally related to what we're just talking about, where you have these regulations targeting digital cash, right? And so the experienced Bitcoin user, like Superchat, right? He's going to say, well, I don't care. I can use Bitcoin privately if I want to. There's a kind of like, well, I know how to use it, therefore you can too, right? That's what he's thinking. But the argument of, well, I can do it privately, that means you can do it privately, it doesn't hold up. Because if you look at the free market, people are not researching anything. They're just using it. Like they're doing the bare minimum. And this is really why Monero is successful. Because if you do the bare minimum, you're still being private with Monero. You'll read some tweets from the Zcash crowd, and they say Monero has atrocious privacy. I mean, that's basically a direct quote. It's like, listen, it clearly doesn't, because it's being used in the largest peer-to-peer economy that depends on cryptocurrency for a privacy use case. It's clearly working. In a vacuum, Monero is not stronger than shielded Zcash. I'm not arguing against that. But guess what? In a vacuum, if we look at Monero and Zcash usage, Monero is mogging Zcash. And that Zcash usage, 80% of it is unshielded. And that is a significant metadata leak when you go from unshielded to shielded. Massive. And the normie who would be using Zcash, they wouldn't understand that. They would not understand timing analysis. And that's a huge leak. So the Kraken delisting, I mean, very plausible in the near future that we will see Kraken delist Monero in the United States. So if you are a Kraken fanboy, I don't know why you would be. I would tell you to rethink that because, at any moment they can just, pull the rug there. Okay, next up. So this week in America, crazy news week, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I mean, that footage, brutal footage. It was really shocking to a lot of people. This guy is basically a moderate. His opinions are not even like that edgy at all. Actually, they're not edgy. They're pretty normal opinions. And you have like these deranged people like celebrating this, and they feel morally righteous for it because they think he's a Nazi. Like this is the IQ that we're dealing with. Now, the reason I'm talking about this though is because there is a database that is being created, and this is highly troubling. It's called www.charliesmurderers.com. And basically, it's a crowdsourced website where people are being identified who are celebrating the death. And they're making a map. They are tracking what jobs they have, and they're trying to get all these people fired. But I think you can kind of see where I'm going with this. This is like pretty concerning. Because obviously they're going to retaliate too, and they're going to have a list of people on the right, and it's going to turn into this tit for tat thing. You're making a public database of people who are extremists. And that is, that could be really bad. So, I'm not sure what the answer here is like, other than like making like doxing illegal. I don't know if there's legislation for that. But I think I'm looking at this now. I think this could get bad. Maybe not in the short term, in the long term. Like if you have websites like this, it's a really massive privacy leak. I don't see how you could have a site like this, not be illegal, because you're essentially spreading these, or you're making claims against people that they believe in certain things, and it could get people hurt. At the least they're going to be losing their jobs and stuff. So I'm not supporting any of their tweets or anything. Celebrating the death of somebody like this is weird. I don't know. It's bizarre to me, but they are out there. We live amongst them. To be honest too, like I've lived in liberal areas, okay? And if you get like a liberal, like leftist crazy person by themselves, they're super nice. But if you get them in a group, then they're like virtue signaling, and that's where this kind of comes out. Especially on the internet too, where they're like trying to get attention. But the extremism goes out the window when you like actually talk to people. It's really, the social media is really the issue here. And something like this, it's just yet another piece of the puzzle of what is going to, push digital ID. And I think something like this, is going to push people in that direction of we need that. And that's not a good thing. All right, next up, we got Proton Mail. Some controversy here. This is a tweet from VX Underground. And I also saw Doing Fed Time tweeting a lot about this as well. Basically, there was this group that was able to gain access to North Korean state-sponsored machines that were being used to attack South Korean government things. And so what this group FRAC did is they found password sheets, various unencrypted things in the document, and they notified the South Korean government of this information. Where it gets bad, though, is this group, FRAC, they were speaking to South Korean people in proxy. And so they made a Proton email address and contacted the South Korean government from that Proton Mail. But then on August 15th, the Proton email was nuked. And additionally, the person who had the email on the South Korean side had their Proton email nuked as well. So what happened? Well, probably Proton Mail had gone out of their way to terminate these accounts. So FRAC then contacted Proton by email requesting an unban, and Proton responded by saying that their account would cause further damage to our service, therefore we will keep the account suspended. FRAC then decided to contact the legal department for Proton, and they were ignored, even though they contacted them on 8 separate occasions. So it's kind of weird here because, they were actually doing like the right thing and like going to South Korea and saying, hey, we have these like passwords here and all this information. So doing Fed time, he responded to this and he said that Proton sells privacy and kills accounts on a CERT tip, CERT tip. A complaint does not equal court order. Proton is Swiss. CERTs are advisories, not subpoenas. They suspend first and litigate never. They admit thousands of compliance actions. If they wanted to fight it, they could, in turn forcing a court order. They didn't. They folded. The same as always. So basically, these CERTs, they don't have any legal authority. But they were given one, and they said, okay, fine, we're going to comply. And that was that. Because VX Underground, they confirmed that the government complained, and Proton complied. Because they're a legal company, and that's what they do. And CERT stands for Government Computer Emergency Response Team. Next up, Nepal. A ban on social media backfires, and politics moves to a chat room. Parliament of Nepal right now is Discord, a user set of the platform popular with video gamers, where tens of thousands are debating the nation's future. Okay, so basically, this is an article from the New York Times. An attempt to ban social media in Nepal ended this week in violent protests with the prime minister ousted, the parliament in flames, and soldiers on the streets of the capital. Now, the very technology the government tried to outlaw is being harnessed to help select the country's next leader. As more than 100,000 citizens are meeting regularly in a virtual chat room to debate the country's future. More than 30 people were killed in clashes with the police during youth-led protests that convulsed the city or the capital in a paroxysm of outrage over wealth inequality, corruption, and plans to ban some social media platforms. After the government's collapse on Tuesday, the military imposed a curfew across the capital, Kathmandu, and restricted large gatherings. The country in political limbo and no obvious next leader in place, Nepalis have taken to Discord, a platform popularized by video gamers to enact the digital version of a national convention. The conversation inside the Discord channel, taking place in a combination of voice, video, and text chats, is so consequential that it is being discussed on national television and live streamed on news sites. The organizers of the channel are members of Hami Nepal, a civic organization, and many of those participating in the chat are the so-called Gen Z activists who led this week's protest. But since the Prime Minister's abrupt resignation on Tuesday, power in Nepal effectively resides with the military. The Army's chiefs, who most likely will decide who leads the next country, met with the channel's organizers and asked them to put forth a potential nominee for interim leader. In just 4 days, the server has grown to more than 145,000 members, and users are quickly discovering both the limits of democracy and of a social media platform in which everyone gets a say. Yeah, you think? This story doesn't seem real. Like, I feel like this is like a joke. Like, I don't see how this ends well. But, like, I gotta say, there probably is nothing worse than being, like democracy itself sucks ass. Okay. Like I don't like it. It hasn't really done that good for me, at least on a national scale. But now, instead of just having democracy amongst an entire group of people, now your political environment is being determined by Gen Z in Discord. That's fucking terrifying. That's pretty terrifying. I don't know if I support that. I don't know. Maybe it's better than what we already have, actually. All right, yeah. Next up, the NPM attack. So basically, the attack failed. The attacker only got like $500 worth of crypto. And basically, it was a massive attack that happened last week where there was a phishing email from a fake NPM support domain that stole credentials and gave attackers access to publish malicious package updates. The injected code targeted web crypto activity, hooking into Ethereum, Solana, and other chains to hijack transactions, and replacing wallet addresses directly in network responses. The attackers' mistakes caused crashes in CI/CD pipelines, which led to early detection and limited impact. Still, this is a clear reminder. If your funds sit in a software wallet or on an exchange, you're one code execution away from losing everything. Supply chain compromises remain a powerful malware delivery vector. We're also seeing more targeted attacks emerge. Hardware wallets are built to withstand these threats. Features like clear signing let you confirm what's happening, and transaction checks flag suspicious activity before it's too late. The immediate danger may have passed, but the threat hasn't. Stay safe. So yeah, the attack did not work. Basically, there was a reputable developer that got compromised, but fortunately, the attack failed. So it could have been a lot worse. But it's a reminder, be careful. Don't keep all your funds on a hot wallet. If you are using like a hardware wallet, use transaction checks. Just to watch what you're doing. It's crazy to hear about these people like losing millions of dollars worth of crypto, as if it's just like another day. It's probably because with crypto, it's not like dollar value. Maybe that catches people off guard or something. Next up, ShopNBit. Yeah, so ShopNBit published their statistics for August 2025. Monero in first place with 65.79% of the total transactions. Massive victory. They've been behind for a while, so they finally, got back up there. Bitcoin was in second with 31.37%. USDT had 1.75%, Fiat 0.82%, and Lightning 0.27%. So Lightning got absolutely mogged. So yeah, there was a couple months there where Monero was soundly in second, but this month they crushed. And maybe that was related to that price pump that happened where people were, holding on to Monero instead of using it. Not really sure, but things switched in August and there's a big pumpage and there's a big pump in usage. So cool to see. We got another hack here. This is from Microsoft Teams. And this is from Bax1337 on Twitter. Hackers are using Microsoft Teams to pwn people and steal their crypto. The attack is deceptively simple and relies on social engineering as well as malware. They've already stolen millions of dollars from both project founders and normal users. And so basically the way it works is they reach out to people on Twitter or Telegram. And they DM the target saying, hey, we want to record a podcast interview. So they say yes. And with social engineering, they become friendly with them. So what happens is the hackers, they'll have like a lengthy discussion with the target. And they ask the target to share their screen to show the target's project. And after a while, the hacker will say something like, oh, let me show you something on my screen. And then a harmless looking dialog box pops up. And the example here just says presenter mode. User is requesting control, deny, or give control. The target may think they're just handing presenter mode off to somebody else so they can screen share, but what the dialogue actually means is you're about to give a hacker full remote control of your desktop. And once approved, they can run arbitrary code and pwn your computer. And this is especially dangerous because the wording is vague, right? Requesting control. There's no scary warnings. And for comparison, Zoom, they had like a much more scary warning where it says, that the person will be able to view and interact with your screen, install software, and change settings. So it's much more serious. But in this case, someone would be, socially engineered. They wouldn't even be thinking of that. And so this has been around for a long time, but it's been pretty successful. So this isn't like a 0-day. It's just social engineering and a bad UX design. Social engineering, for what's worth, this is like the number one way to attack people. Always has been. People are very trustworthy. And all it takes is earning someone just a little bit of trust, and you can get what you want. Well, anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the content, go to antimoonboy.com, and they got merch on there. At antimoonboy.com/merch. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt and support the show, you can also send a super chat at xmrchat.com/Zenu. And yeah, I appreciate you listening. And Robot, what'd you think of the show?
Beep boop. I am working on creating a website which allows people to submit the type of vacuum cleaner that they have in their house and the location of their house, so I can know where their vacuum cleaners are. Beep boop.
Yeah, see, this is exactly what I was saying. It's a slippery slope, guys. Anyways, I'm out. It's the end of the show. Have a good one, guys.